my managers were just like, hey, Judd Apatow just called and asked if you wanted to write for Crashing. And I was like, yes. I do. And I just remember like, this is incredible. Like my life will change because of this, because it's very difficult to get a writing job. And, I had done a couple, Judd at that time, he had seen me out a lot because he was starting to get back into stand-up. And so as we saw, his special came out last Christmas time. That's what he was working towards. But like, that's why his reinvestment in stand-up and Pete's show and all of that inspired him to start doing stand-up again. I'm sure among other things, but from my viewpoint and talking with him. So he was out on the scene getting back into it. And he saw me, and I had been on the Pete Holmes show, and I knew Pete. And so when it came to hiring writers, they thought of me, and I went in to write for it.
So what does a typical day look like on the writing job?
You get in, you have coffee.
What time?
Usually around 9.
Okay.
Yeah.
Reasonable hour.
Yeah, sometimes we would start early. And then you already start thinking about lunch. It's a lot of ordering food. It's a lot of ordering food and coffee. But yeah, I mean, the ideal early processes are what the early stages, I should say, are like what they would call like blue sky. So you're just sort of pitching things out in a sort of brainstormy way, sharing stories and stuff where the show could go, from your own life, and, just commiserating, but also sharing group experience. And a lot of us have been to the same comedy clubs, and so we know the owners. We share our different stories about that owner, and all the things that could happen. And there's a writer's assistant in the room who usually that person wants to be a writer, and they work extremely hard, and they're paid the least. And, they do a lot of work because they're organizing everybody's thoughts and taking them down in real time.
Oh, my gosh.
Yes. The writer's assistant is a very, very tough job. I think they're somewhat hard to get. And like I said, they work so hard, and they're paid the least. And so they're there taking everything down, and then those notes will go out, and you can, review them over overnight if you want, and the next day come in. And as weeks go on in the early stages, you're sort of trying to map out the season, episodes, how many episodes your show is, but for us 1 through 8, and sort of the arc of the season and the characters and all of those things, they start to take form as the weeks go on, and we sort of lock things in. And Judd would pop. He's not there every single day, but he'd sort of pop in. Sorry, it's so loud.
No, you're cool.
Okay.
These mics will pick up mainly.
Oh,
us
good,
anyway.
good. Okay.
Yeah. This is the grind right here.
I know that everybody's out in the other room yelling. But Judd would sort of come in and basically sort of shape or hone in on the ideas, or basically share his expertise. Like, here's where I think this should go.
Wow.
And sometimes we'd be going off on a tangent for a long time, and if he didn't pop in for a while, he could come in and be like, no, he would never be like, no, he's not like that. He would just be like, what if it goes in this direction? Or I think the series, like for season 1, I remember he's like, what if it ends with Leaf and Pete in a bed together? And then so we would have to sort of find our way to that, even if that's not where we were going at all. So
Interesting.
So yeah, he's the executive producer, so he has pretty much the final say.
It's almost like one of those tent poles, though.
Yeah.
Like you said, like with your stand-up. It's
Yeah,
almost
like here's where we need to get.
The destination.
Yeah, he had a vision for how he wanted the season to end, and how we were going to get there was the task.
And how many hours a day is this?
Usually, it depends on your showrunner, like their style, and sometimes if they feel like, well, you're exhausted, we've exhausted our minds today, you can go home. It depends, but there are shows I know for a fact. You hear these stories about like, the New Girl room was really long. They would be there sometimes overnight, or stay till 11 or midnight. And with Crashing, it was typically like 9 or 10 to 6-ish, something like that. So like decent hours, sometimes earlier, sometimes later.
I've heard Pete say in interviews, with Crashing specifically and writing it, that he felt like if what they were talking about didn't make him uncomfortable or didn't feel too personal to share, then it almost wasn't worth keeping. Do you find the same with your material or things that you write as well, or did you find that in the show? Or
yeah, I think it's like your desire obviously is to connect with people. My desire is to connect with people first and foremost, but in my own very unique way. And so I mean, I'm not calling myself very unique, but I'm saying ideally I'm connecting with them in a unique way. You know, I don't want it to be, I like the specificity of things, you know? And so my favorite things early on in stand-up were when I would see a comic talking about something very, very specific, and me knowing exactly what they were talking about, it just made me laugh so hard. And that was my favorite thing about it, is like, how could they? And those are the moments where you're like, man, I wish I thought of that. Those times where you see jokes that you're basically jealous of, because you're like, that's so good. Why didn't I? So really all you're trying to do is just get that unique perspective on topics that really a lot of people can relate to, you know? And then again, not everyone is going to like you. And I think that's probably a good thing, in my opinion. It hurts a little because a lot of us are, you know, either starved for attention, or we're in this for a reason because we need that like sort of love from the outside. So it can hurt a little if not everybody likes what you do. But I think in general, it's probably, I would prefer having a specific group of people than everyone.
Do you think that's helped you to find your voice as well? Like you said,
yeah,
being
I mean,
more comfortable.
Right. I don't like, I guess maybe I would be fooling myself to say that I don't love creating some tension, you know? I think I do. I think too, for a long time, it was one of those things where it's like, you don't want to stir things up or whatever, or have like a super strong opinion because you want to be liked. And that was obviously a theme for me as a kid, as like a little performer and attention seeker. Like I wanted to be liked. And obviously I still have that in me as a stand-up, you know, I enjoy getting laughs. But now I think I have more of a desire to say what's on my mind, or make a sort of statement or a point, or share my perspective on it, you know?
Yeah.
And maybe open up somebody else's mind to it.
Yeah.
So I don't necessarily want to be like, you know, I'm not a super political comic. I'm not, or at least I don't see myself that way. But I would like to like open up somebody's eyes to a different perspective.
Hot breath. Hot breath.